Welcome to the Resiliently Rising podcast. I'm your host, Carrie Holladay, and I'm really excited for today's episode and to learn all about an aspect of healing that I'm not as familiar with. So today we are joined by Devon Ragan. Devon is a licensed clinical nutritionist who specializes in gut health and hormone support, specifically for those experiencing chronic stress or have a background in trauma. She's guided by a passion for how the body works and a calling to serve others as she helps clients use food to feel their best, physically, mentally, and emotionally. And she brings empathy, expertise, and steady encouragement to every step of the journey. Devon creates a coaching space that's about grace and practice, not perfection. She asks the right questions to understand your life and health history and works alongside you to build habits that are supportive, flexible, and lasting. Her guidance is always personalized, practical, and delivered with warmth. Devon obtained her master's degree in applied clinical nutrition from New York Chiropractic College and completed her 1,000 hours of clinical training with the Clinicians Incubator. She has been in private practice for 5 years and spends her off time with her family on her small homestead in Maryland. Join me in welcoming Devon Ragan.
Thank you so much.
I am so excited for this conversation.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Yeah. So before we really dive in to all the details, I'd love for our listeners to get to know more about you. What led you into this work, specializing in gut health and hormones and supporting people that are trying to navigate stress and trauma?
Yeah, so I think like a lot of us in this space, we get into the stress and trauma field because we've personally experienced it.
Yeah, that sounds right.
It's funny, I started seeing a new therapist like quite a few years ago, and on the intake form, it says like, list out your trauma. And I put none. And then it's, list out some big things that happened in your life. And during the intake, she says, I find it interesting that you said that you didn't experience any trauma. And then you list out a lot of trauma. And I said, I guess I didn't realize. And that was kind of the spark for what helped me recognize how those big impactful moments can stay with us and really impact the body. I guess, long story short of how I got into the nutrition field, between the ages of 9 and 21, I went to 8 different funerals over the course of 12 years. So that's like one every like 18 months. And this is like the formative years that we're growing, right? Between 9 and 21, where we're getting our perspectives on the world. And what I was seeing is a lot of family members utilizing our conventional healthcare system and coming out sicker than when they went in. Now, as an adult, I can look back and recognize that there's some treatments that may cause us to get worse before we get better. But at 10, 12, 14, I'm seeing this and I'm thinking, this is not it. At 14, my dad had a transient ischemic attack, which is essentially a warning heart attack. And the doctors told him, we can give you prescription medication or you can change your diet and lifestyle. And it was the first time that I recognized that food could be used for something more than just something yummy to fill our stomachs, right?
Yeah.
Like it has an actual purpose. And that really sparked my interest in the body and how it works. Going into college, I thought because of that, I wanted to be a nurse. And then I started college and learned I really don't like it when the insides are on the outside. You
sound like my daughter.
Yeah. So didn't know what I wanted to be when I grew up at that point. So I figured I switched to like a business management major, something that was generic enough that I could get a job because I grew up in the time where like you have to go to college. And that I did it, but it like wasn't super fulfilling. I was working at a nonprofit healthcare center, again, conventional medicine, and seeing like what's not working and thinking like there has to be a different way. Was able to combine my love for the body and this interest in food and found a nutrition program where I was able to get my master's from. So had to do a lot of unlearning of what we think is the right way to do things. And while I was finishing my master's, had my first son, was working 2 jobs and just got burnt out, that chronic stress cycle, and felt so terrible, honestly.
Yeah.
And the people that helped me to feel better, I thought, this is what I really need to be doing. I need to turn around and help those. Like, now that I've helped myself, I need to turn around and help those who've gone through this too.
Yeah, it's like
So
that pay it forward type of
yeah,
idea.
yeah. So that's kind of the long story of it, is that I'm helping these folks because I know what it's like to feel that way, and I never want to feel that way again.
Yeah. I love how basically saying like food is medicine
Yeah.
versus like the food is fuel. I've never been one for that idea. I understand, yes, food is fuel. Like
Mhm.
we need the
Like, we have to have
energy.
it.
Yeah, exactly. But I'm also like, food is also comforting. Food is also
Mhm.
pleasurable. Food is very connecting, like so much
Yeah.
social experiences and bonding around food. But it's also it's very healing.
Mhm.
And so it's not just maybe this is also my many, many, many years of eating disorder where I hate the
Mhm.
idea of like, no, you just got to think of it in rigidity. Like,
Yeah. Yeah, and all of this to say I'm not anti-medication or conventional
oh, yeah. Yeah,
medicine.
yeah. There's a place for it
That
all.
yes, absolutely. But a lot of clients will come to me and have concerns about their emotional eating, and I'm like, "Yeah, but food is part of, our culture." Like, we have
Yeah.
holidays coming up that are centered around food, and we've always had that, like, for thousands of years, but we wanna find the right ways to go about it. So
Yeah. Yeah, I love what I've been seeing you post on social media where there's and even like in your bio, like there's practice and there's grace and there's an understanding about the relationship with
yes.
food
Yes.
versus um just so much shaming that we
Mhm.
around food, like culturally, there's a
Mhm.
lot of shaming around weight and the way that you're eating, and it's horrific. It's very traumatic. I mean, I can speak to that trauma as a child
Yeah.
surrounding food and being, bullied by family because of my
Mhm.
weight. But the compassionate lens that you approach, that relationship with food, I absolutely just love. So,
Thank you,
thank
I
you for
appreciate
bringing
that.
that.
Yeah, I feel like we are our own worst critics, right? Like, we're so hard on ourselves, and if that worked, it would have worked, right? Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
so why don't we try a new approach and offer ourselves kindness and compassion? So
Yeah, exactly. That's why I often say to my clients, healing is relating differently. And it's relating
Mhm.
differently to the parts of us that are those critics or the judgmental, your clients that come in like, I wanted this emotional eating, like I want to change this. Like, okay, how do we
Mhm.
relate and understand the parts of us that do that and
Mhm.
come in that kind, compassionate, understanding
Yeah,
approach?
absolutely.
So, what is it that makes your approach so different from the traditional nutrition coaching?
Yeah, so I think a lot of people think about a nutritionist as somebody that you go to if you want to lose weight
Mm.
or if you get diagnosed with diabetes. And like, that's pretty much it. But what I offer is, and this is what I bill to insurance, is labeled medical nutrition therapy, because there's such a crossover between food and mental health, that I tell clients when they start apologizing for like, sorry that I'm turning this into a therapy session. I'm like, no, no, like I am billing your insurance for medical nutrition therapy. I'm not a replacement for a therapist, but there's
Yeah.
such a huge crossover there. So what that means is that I am looking at the person that's in front of me, their diagnosis, their health history, their food intake, their sleep, their stress levels, and we come up with a personalized approach using food, herbs, sometimes supplements, behavior modifications to help them feel their best and optimize their health. So I have patients who refuse any type of prescription medication. And then I have clients who want to use nutrition to support the medications that they're on. So it's a wide
Okay.
spectrum. But when we've seen that nutrition can be just as effective for things like mild and moderate depression, or foods are clinically proven to reduce symptoms of anxiety, I feel like it's such a powerful and overlooked tool that when we can use them to help feel our best. So I don't think enough people recognize that power of the foods that we eat, that it goes far beyond just like the number on the scale.
Yeah, yeah, wholeheartedly. That's when I first meet with clients, we kind of go over that of your system is comprised of systems, and you
Mm,
can't, like, pick out each one,
mhm.
that they all in a very holistic sense, as you were describing, everything impacts the others, like, what is your sleep like? What is your diet like? Now,
Yeah.
granted, I'm not the expert in that, so I'm like, "Hey, just something to be aware of and to talk to, say, like you, Devon, about, is exploring, well, what are my hormones like? What could I
Mhm.
where are areas that I do need some improvement? What's my lab work looking like? Like, all of those things do need to be taken into consideration
Mhm.
because one impacts the other and vice
Yep.
versa.
Yep. It's one cohesive system.
That's exactly right. As much as we go to, like, "I'm gonna go to this doctor for this and this doctor for this,"
Yep.
we really need to get everybody working together.
I
It's
wish.
like have you ever seen this show, I th I think it's Private Practice?
I've heard of it, but I haven't seen it.
Yeah. It's, I think that's the name of it, but it's this practice in LA where they have all of these doctors working together for this
That sounds phenomenal.
holistic approach. I know, right? I'm like, "Why don't we have more of those?" Really.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, you talk a lot about, gut and hormones and the nervous system all working together in this holistic view. So, can you walk us through how these systems interact and why it's so important to really look at all three together in the context of trauma?
Yeah, absolutely. So, like you mentioned, conventional medicine divides our body systems up by specialty. So, you've got things happening with your gut, you're going to go see a gastroenterologist. You've got stuff happening with your heart, you're going to go see a cardiologist. For our hormones, we're going to see an endocrinologist.
Mm.
Brain is neurology. And we have the body segmented, but the body is that one cohesive system, and every part is sending communication signals out, and every cell is listening. So just because your brain is sending out signals of, hey, we're not feeling so safe, it doesn't mean that that's staying just in the brain. It's
Yeah.
affecting the gut. And that communication system is just so pervasive in the entire body. So when we're chopping up the systems by specialty, we're really missing out on that full body approach. So I'm not. I'm sure you're very familiar with the vagus nerve
Mhm.
and doing some calming healing there. But that vagus nerve is responsible for regulating the HPA axis, which is our hypothalamus, pituitary, and adrenal. So the hypothalamus and pituitary are two little glands in the brain that, when we're stressed, are sending out signals of like, "Hey, we're stressed." And then they have a communication with our adrenal glands, which are these little glands that sit right on top of the kidneys. And when they receive that stress signal, they're going to send out cortisol, which is a signal to the entire body of, hey, we're stressed. Now, cortisol does get a bad rep. As we see on social media that like we all want to lower our cortisol, but we do need it in some small amounts. It's our get up and go hormone. And when we're stressed, it's there for a reason. But when we're stuck in that chronic activation, it's telling those adrenals to continuously pump out cortisol. And now we're really elevated. Um, Over time, we will see what is, I guess, clinically now described as burnout. Used to be called adrenal fatigue, although that's not really recognized. Um, so we can see things like safety signals interrupted in the body in terms of mental health, like depression or anxiety, but also physical health, like gut dysfunction, thyroid issues, or asthma. So a great example of this is that like we've all felt those nervous butterflies in our bellies
Mm.
before, something big. We're nervous or anxious about something. Maybe we get like goosebumps or we start like having like sweats because we're nervous. Maybe it affects our digestion where like we're nervous and we have to like run to the bathroom, either like vomiting or loose stools. That's because the body is sending those stress signals out. Nothing physically has happened yet, but the body is responding that way. Those hormones are sending signals to the gut saying like we're not safe. And so the gut either shuts down or evacuates everything. So when trauma happens, we're starting to see chronic symptoms now, things like IBS or anxiety, or even those with like ADHD tendencies.
Yeah. I love like just naming that you the way that you spoke about cortisol,
Mm.
like not villainizing it.
Yeah.
Because it's so true. Whenever there's I think we live in not I think, I know, we live in a very black and white
Hmm.
world.
Yeah.
And so it's either like, "Oh, this is good or this is bad. This is healthy or this is not."
Hmm.
And so often people come in, like my clients will come in, "I wanna stop this behavior. I don't like this." It's like, "Oh, let's slow down and see how is it helping?"
Hmm.
Like, in at its core, everything is trying to serve a purpose. It's trying to help, and that
Exactly.
cortisol is no different, but it's when it becomes now overloaded. It's
Hmm.
now the dominant. That's when we start to see more concerns and that burnout. I didn't know. I was even going to ask you, like, yeah, tell me more about that adrenal fatigue. And
Yeah.
so when you're like,
So,
oh, it's called
okay.
burnout now, I'm like, oh, I didn't even know that.
Yeah. So, conventional medical system does not recognize adrenal fatigue unless it's the extremes, like we're looking at something like Cushing's or Addison's disease. But, the conventional medicine system works that way, right? Like, unless you're sick, you're healthy. There is no middle ground. It's just like you're seeing on social media.
Yeah.
It's this or that.
Hmm.
So, I think of functional health like a gas gauge, where optimally we want a full tank of gas. Conventionally, we don't get a diagnosis until our gas light comes on because our tank is so empty. But there's so much that happens between a full tank of gas and your gas light coming on that we have time to intervene for. So that burnout or adrenal fatigue is where, we don't have anything diagnosable yet, but we're feeling like crud. Maybe we're seeing things in our blood work that looks off. We're that like wired but tired feeling where our brains are going, but our bodies are just exhausted. Maybe we're relying on a lot of caffeine to get us through the day, kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's the body's doing what it can to make sure that we're surviving, but it's going to come at a cost.
Yeah.
So we want to intervene before it gets too far.
Yeah. So I imagine that's where the idea of optimal versus
Hmm.
normal really comes
Yes.
in.
Hmm.
Yeah, and I
Yep.
do love that that's becoming more recognized.
Hmm.
Like, "Hey, let's see, obviously there are symptoms here," versus like I had doctors before that would just look at the lab work and say, "Everything's fine, everything's normal." I'm like,
Yeah.
"But something's clearly not right.
Hmm.
Like, I'm feeling these things or this is what's going on," that it can be
Yeah.
really and then as the patient, it's really discouraging and feels invalidating and crazy
Hmm.
making, and it's like,
Yep, you
"What's"
feel shame and blame
Mhm.
and, what's wrong with me?
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. And you share a lot on your side of, everything that the body is telling you is trying to help you. And I think it's the same thing on this side of it where those physical symptoms are just the body communicating to you that it's in need of something and we just have to figure out what that is.
yeah,
That, there's nothing I don't want to say that there's nothing wrong with the body. The body is functioning in the way that we would expect it to in the environment we place it in.
yeah,
So the more we continue to remind the body of, things are safe, we don't have to be chronically activated or changing our environment so that those things are true, we can help with
yeah.
those physical symptoms.
Yeah, actually creating what we call, like, a felt sense of
Yes.
safety. Yeah,
Mhm.
exactly.
Absolutely.
That's where I think, like, that trust in yourself is so, so important because when you relinquish all of that, I'll call it power,
Mhm.
to the medical field, then you know your body best. You're the one
Mhm.
living in it every single moment of every single day, that
Yeah.
you know your body's history better than the doctor's gonna know your history.
Mhm.
That when we go in and say, "Oh, well, then you have the degree, you must know my body better than I do," then we are in a slippery slope to
Mhm.
really, um, fall more and more into that shame cycle when it's like, "Wait, what you're saying isn't matching what I'm
Yeah.
experiencing." And I've definitely gone through that myself.
I have 2 great, I guess, case studies to give for that for clients that I've worked with. So the first is I do some work with continuous glucose monitoring companies. So, like people that wear the sensors and see what their glucose is on their phone. I have a client, she's a retired nurse, and saw that the system was not working in the way that she felt it should, and that frustrated her, and so she left. Using the CGMs, she was really dialed in with like food and how her glucose is responding. And one day she's getting an alert on her phone of like, you're having a very high glucose spike. You need to address this right now. And she's like, I don't feel like that though. Like I've been doing this long enough. I know what my body feels like when my glucose is spiking and I don't feel that. And so she took the finger stick glucometer, checked her glucose, and it was perfectly fine. The sensor was faulty. But here we have medical technology saying one thing, but she had that intuition in her body to say, no, I know what this normally feels like. So I was so proud of her for that. And I have another client whom she spent probably 2 years fighting with conventional medicine, even a functional medicine doctor, about very strange gut symptoms. She ran a gut test, which we can talk about later on about what that looks like. Just significant bloating, lots of food reactions, but all of her labs were coming back fine. And they kind of just threw their hands in the air and said, I think it's all in your head.
Oh, gosh.
So, we chatted a little bit. She shared about her symptoms, what exacerbated them, what helped them get better. And come to find out, she had mold exposure. We ran a test and she came back for multiple mycotoxins that fell perfectly in line with the bloating symptoms that she was having, the brain fog that she was experiencing, the anxiety that she was having, like very physical symptoms.
Yeah.
And conventional medicine said, your labs look good. You're fine. So now we're working on, helping her work through that mold with improved symptoms and, reducing the bloating and the anxiety.
I hate that for her that she had to go through the
Yeah.
invalidation. And
Mm-hmm.
also, like, for both of those patients, like, good for them for
Mm-hmm.
knowing their body well enough to say, "This isn't
Yeah.
right." Like,
Mm-hmm.
something is not okay, and standing up for themselves. And I had one doctor say, "Oh, well, we tried," and that was it. And I was like,
Oh my
"Are you
goodness.
serious?" I had another one that, when I was explaining everything, she's like, "Oh, well, just take a hair supplement because she's like, your lab work's all fine. Didn't test any of my hormones. Your lab work's all fine." I was like, "Oh my
Mm.
gosh!" Like,
Yeah.
you guys, it was so frustrating. So here in the podcast, we often talk about, the emotional and relational impact of betrayal and how that shows up in the nervous system. But you talk a lot about how chronic stress shows up in gut dysregulation, those hormone shifts. So can you walk us through how trauma specifically might create these physiological patterns, like say in your gut, in your adrenals, as you mentioned, hormones that we tend to overlook?
Yeah, absolutely. So before I dive into the physiology piece, I want to share some statistics about trauma and those physical symptoms that we see. So we have clinical research that shows us that upwards of 70% of those that are diagnosed with IBS have at least one ACE in their background, ACE being adverse childhood event. That
Mm.
prevalence goes up with the number of ACE events experienced, and females are more likely to experience IBS after trauma, and the severity of symptoms and the frequency of their flares will coincide with the number of ACE events. Those with IBS are 2 times more likely to struggle with depression and anxiety. So here we're seeing that very clear gut-brain communication
Yeah.
happening. Women are more likely to have an autoimmune disease, with some stats showing 4 out of 5 autoimmune diseases diagnosed are for women.
Oof.
In the last 3 to 5 years, we've researched linking trauma and ACE with PCOS due to hormone disruptions because that HPA axis gets stuck in that
Mm.
activated state. As of 2024, women are more likely by 66% to receive a misdiagnosis than men. Um, Many health studies are done in men and postmenopausal
Right.
women, but not in cycling women. Heck, we even have like the BMI was created only using men. Diagnoses like heart attacks and ADHD present differently in females. And so we go undiagnosed or misdiagnosed for so long.
Yeah.
And that creates so much stress, trauma, shame, blame. When we look at trauma in women versus men, women have a PTSD prevalence of about 10%, while men only come in around 4, even though statistically men experience more trauma. So while men experience trauma in the sense of like combat or accidents or physical assault, women predominantly experience trauma in the forms of domestic violence or sexual assault. Those experiences where it's truly feeling like that loss of control and loss of power.
Yeah.
In 2020, Harvard released an article suggesting stress as a cause for autoimmune conditions like lupus and rheumatoid arthritis, not just a contributor, which I found horrifyingly fascinating.
Yeah.
And if we think about who predominantly is like the default parent, the primary parent, the person who bears those domestic responsibilities, regardless of if they also contribute financially, it's most oftentimes women. We bear that invisible load for our family. So when we think about stress and the impact of like an autoimmune disease, unfortunately, women are predominantly being diagnosed at 4 out of 5 times.
Yeah.
So when we use this as a starting point for trauma, we can see how this can present in physical symptoms, right? Like the IBS, the autoimmune, medical conditions that are exacerbated because they haven't been diagnosed. They've misdiagnosed or undiagnosed. So here's a few scenarios of what that looks like physiologically. So we experience trauma and the gut maybe shuts down because those stress signals are telling the digestive system, digestion is not a priority right now. We're going to halt things here. And people might experience constipation. So in female, well, males too, actually, the longer the stool is staying in the bowel, things like estrogen start to reabsorb. So now we start seeing symptoms of like estrogen dominance, where we've got painful cramping, heavy periods, mood swings. Many women that have PCOS have high estrogen as part of their hormonal imbalance. And so, like, what's the gut doing, right? Like, and is the gut shut down from the trauma? Like, we can give you herbs that help with motility and increase your fiber. But if your intestines are hearing, we're not safe, like that's not going
Yeah.
to fix the root. So we want to get to the root of the trauma and really help the body through that way. Or on the other end of it, where we experience trauma and now the gut is saying digestion is not a priority. We're going to evacuate and get rid of everything. Now we can't keep food in. And so we're going to experience poor absorption of the nutrients. So we can be eating a lot of the right foods, but not absorbing them. So things like anemia, depression, anxiety are all from a poor B vitamin status. Quick transit times mean that we can't absorb our fat-soluble vitamins A, D, E, and K. So vitamin D is involved in hormone regulation, bone density, immune health, and mental health. Vitamin K is involved in clotting and our colonic health. So if we miss out on these vitamins, it's creating this downstream effect where the body functions suboptimally. And over time, now we're looking at diagnoses from real health problems, all because that trauma is telling the digestive system, like, nope, we're not going to worry about this right now.
Yeah.
So, we can see how trauma creates that HPA axis to be stuck. We talked about that adrenal overproduction. Cortisol is not enough. So the adrenals are going to pump out both cortisol and DHEA. DHEA is a building block for all of our sex hormones. So when we start to get into that adrenal fatigue or adrenal burnout, now we're not making enough cortisol, but we also might not be making enough DHEA. So now we're seeing low estrogen, low progesterone, or low testosterone. And so, all because we're so stressed. And our adrenals are just doing the best little job that they can, but they just can't pump out the building blocks that we need. And now we see stress as a contributor for our hormone dysfunction.
Yeah. So I'm hearing it's kind of like, I call it Goldilocks effect, where there's just like the optimal in the middle.
Yeah.
Because too much on one end, everything's now dumping out, and we may experience same symptoms as the other end. Right? Where it's like, okay, you're going to have digestive upset on both ends of the spectrum. You're going to so how would that look lab work wise? If symptomatically either end of the spectrum can have similarities, then how do you know in the labs where you fall?
Yeah. So when I have clients coming to me with stress, adrenal fatigue, adrenal burnout, they're often saying, "How do I lower my cortisol?" And I say, "Wait. We want to test you first, because if your cortisol has already bottomed out, right? Like we've hit that peak where we're creating too much, and then we do burnout and we're not
Yeah, yeah,
making
yeah.
enough. I don't want to lower your cortisol anymore. I want to bring
Yeah,
it
yeah.
up," which
Right.
is very counterintuitive to what we see on things like social media. So we can run a salivary cortisol test, which is different than what you're going to get from a blood serum. So when you go to the like a Quest or a LabCorp, they're going to pull your blood, and that's going to be a single point in the day. But our cortisol should be a nice bell curve over the course of the day, where we wake up, we have a little spike in cortisol about 30 minutes after we wake up, and it comes back down. And that's like our, okay, time to get ready for the day
Mm,
kind of thing.
mm.
And then, maybe it peaks around lunchtime and then slowly comes down the rest of the day, declining as we get into the evening so we can settle down and rest at bedtime. But if we run this test, we can see, is cortisol high in the mornings, but really low in the evening time or afternoon, where we have that like 2 p.m. slump. Or maybe cortisol looks really good in the morning, but at nighttime is really high and we can't fall asleep at nighttime. Your fasting labs that you get done in the morning are not going to pick up that evening elevated cortisol. So a test like that is really helpful. Um,
How often is that? Like, if you have to see it multiple times in a day,
mm.
how many times are you looking
So you're
at it in a day?
providing a salivary sample between 4 and 6 times a day. I like the 6 because then we can see that little like 30-minute bump up after we wake up. So it's a test that gets delivered to your house. You spit in a tube about 6 times, send the tubes off to the lab, and they check what your cortisol levels look like. I recommend those for folks who need to see it on paper. I'm one of those people. So I will tell myself, Devon, you just have to push through. You just have to keep going. Just have another cup of coffee and you'll make it through the afternoon. Like, otherwise you're what? Lazy, negative, like all of these
Mm.
negative things. Whereas when I took one of these tests when I was really going through it, I could see like my cortisol was like below the charts. And so it really helped take that shame and blame off of me and say, okay, it's not that you're lazy. It's that you don't have enough hormones. Like, no wonder you feel this way.
Yeah.
So that was really helpful for me. And I tell people, we don't necessarily need to retest for this because you're going to know based on how you feel, right? Like if you're feeling super sluggish in the afternoons and then we do some work together and you feel good, like I don't need to rerun a test to know that your cortisol is good. We can, but
Yeah,
might as
yeah.
well save your money. Um, in terms of like blood work that we would get from conventional labs, so we could look at like the physiology of stress is that like we kind of push it down, right? And our stomach acid is going to reduce when we're experiencing stress. But vitamins like B12 are absorbed directly in the stomach because of the stomach acid.
Mm.
Or iron is converted from its inactive ferric state to the active ferrous state because of stomach acid. So if we're chronically stressed and we've got low stomach acid, now we've got low B12, probably low iron. So we can see that exactly in blood work. And this might look like anemia, right? And if our absorption is impaired from either constipation or quick transit times, we might also see things like a higher LDL cholesterol or a lower HDL because stress can cause those fluctuations. We can
Mhm.
also see an elevated glucose level and an A1C level because there's a direct link between stress and our glucose. So for my folks that wear the continuous glucose monitor, that's a marker that we're frequently assessing is, hey, I had this glucose spike and I didn't eat anything. And I'm like, well, what were you doing?
Yes,
Oh, I
yes.
was, in a hectic work meeting and like, oh, okay, that makes sense.
Look at the big picture.
Yeah. This can be really frustrating for somebody who feels like they eat really well, but their labs will indicate suboptimal health because they might be eating a lot of the right things, but we're not absorbing them.
Yeah. As you talk about like this cortisol, like the burnout dropping down to sluggish, I
Mhm.
think of that putting it to the nervous system language. There's the sympathetic, so cortisol spike, and like you're
Yes,
going through, and then it's
exactly.
the body's like, I can't do this anymore. Like this is too
Yeah.
much. So
We
there's
go
that
into that
drop.
dorsal.
Yeah, drop down into dorsal where there is, right. So many times we label ourselves lazy or unmotivated or like, why can't I
Mhm.
just get up and get going? And then we try to do things that actually overload us even more, pushing us
Yep.
further down. That all of it really is a cohesive language of the body.
Yeah, that polyvagal theory is something that I'm always watching for in sessions. Sometimes
Mhm.
I will bring it up to my clients, depending on their background and if I feel it's helpful, to help explain that, like, maybe these sessions right now, like, we're not doing big overloaded changes in our diet and lifestyle. I show them the graph of like sympathetic versus dorsal. Sympathetic is the stress where like I'm stressed and I can do something about it.
Yeah.
And then we hit dorsal and it's like I'm stressed and I can't even do anything because I'm so overwhelmed. And so we recognize, if the client's coming to me in that dorsal state, uh, we're not going to make good change from there. So our focus is going to be on HPA axis and vagus nerve and herbs that help support and calm the body. And then once they're feeling more sympathetic or feeling, hey, even ventral, then we can make those positive life changes. So we're really trying to get to the root of it
Mhm.
before we kind of pull the root out.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. That there is, which is why I'm not a fan of, like, on social media, the, "Oh, here are somatic hacks." I'm not a
Yeah.
fan of that term where it's like, "Oh, do this to, stop your anxiety in 5
Mhm.
minutes." Like, all those ideas, like a quick fix, or it's that do any of these things without recognizing, "Well, wait a minute, where am I?" Because
Right.
if I try doing this or that as this influencer or this person told me without knowing what my body is saying I need, then I'm
Mhm.
more likely to do more harm than good.
Mhm.
And so it all comes back to just like those patients that you had, knowing your body, what it's saying, what it's needing, and then being
Yeah.
able to honor that and follow through.
Yeah.
So, what, like along those lines, what nutrients or foods can we use to support that stress response system in the body?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's certain nutrients that the body will use up more often when it is stressed.
Mm.
Things like B vitamins, vitamin C, minerals are all going to be what we really want to focus on replenishing. Um, of course, there's no like one magic food. We want to have a good balance of all of them. So omega 3s are going to be a healthy fat. So things like olive oil, nuts, walnuts, cashews, Brazil nuts, seeds. So flax, chia, hemp, cold water fish like salmon or cod are going to be really high in those omega 3 healthy fats. Antioxidants are also really beneficial. So this is going to be your colorful plants. So blueberries, dark leafy greens, citrus fruits, even a good quality dark chocolate.
Mm.
I think life is meant to be lived and lived well, and that includes yummy foods. And so if dark chocolate fits in there, absolutely.
Yeah, I always
Um,
say if we weren't meant to enjoy food, God would not have given us taste buds.
yeah, exactly.
If it really was just fuel, then
Mhm.
we
Yep.
wouldn't have flavor.
Exactly. Other foods that we can look at are fermented foods. So those are going to have a natural source of probiotics. So when we talk about gut health, fermented foods are going to be a great source for that. So things like sauerkraut or kimchi or pickles, yogurt, kefir, kombucha, all are great options. Fiber is another one, which is a really unglamorous nutrient to think about, but I think it's going to be like the next hot thing that we see on social media.
Isn't that so
Protein.
funny? The next hot thing we see on social
Yeah.
media.
Yeah. Protein is good for blood sugar balance. We're seeing a huge protein is the hot thing on social media right
Yeah, yeah,
now.
yeah.
I don't disagree with it. I think it's very good for blood sugar stabilization. So when we're, thinking about how we feel during the day, if we're skipping meals, our blood sugar is going to dip, we feel shaky and nauseous, like that's just going to exacerbate the stress that we're feeling. So
Mhm.
having protein with meals is going to help stabilize that blood sugar. For people that are experiencing IBS symptoms, things like peppermint oil have been clinically shown to reduce those symptoms by like 40%.
Oh, wow. Is that
Ginger.
something that, like sorry, like, do
Mhm.
you ingest it? Or I know with essential oils are really big out here in Utah. Is that something you could even apply
Yeah.
topically?
Um, I would, okay, so I'm not an herbalist.
Okay.
I'm not super proficient in essential oils. I think they're fantastic, but I'm not trained on how to use them. I know that there is a camp of people who say, yes, we can ingest, and there's a camp of people who say, no, we cannot. And I don't have enough experience or education to know which is which. So this would be ingesting peppermint oil, but is it in like a capsule where, our esophagus is protected from the hot oil? That's the sphere that I'm like,
Yeah. So that's something that maybe, like, again, taking into the personal, unique, your system. Because also, let's say that you have like a severe heartburn or GERD or something, I would imagine that, hey, be a little more leery about the just straight ingesting. Yeah. Okay.
If your listeners are interested, there's a really great book. It's called This Is Your Brain on Food by Dr. Uma Naidu. And it's a whole book about what foods are really good for brain and nervous system function, recipes that are in there. It just came out a couple years ago. So
awesome. I have a question that how does that, as like my clients are women, a lot of our listeners here are women, and those that aren't are married to someone who's going through the cycles. How does our nutrition play a role with our cycle? I've heard like, oh, during this phase, eat more of these. During this phase, eat more of that. Is there anything to that, or is it?
There's definitely things to that. So I think the first part is understanding what phase of your menstrual cycle you're in, right? Like we have the 4 phases: follicular, where estrogen's rising, we're feeling really good; ovulation, where like, woo, hormones are surging, we feel our best. We might feel like this is the time where we want to like experiment with new recipes, try new things, feel creative. And then luteal hits, estrogen starts declining. So we have it's not clinical research yet. It's a clinical observation because so many people are starting to wear the continuous glucose monitors. We're noticing an uptick in glucose during the luteal phase. And we don't have a reason for it yet. Like, is it hormone related? Is it we're PMSing and we're eating more carbs? We don't know. But there is a link there. And then, we start menstrual cycle. So, for folks that experience maybe a heavy cycle or, where they are already maybe slightly anemic, and now we're definitely pushing into that. Having something like a steak on the first day of your cycle can help replete those iron stores that we're losing. For folks that feel like their estrogen and progesterone really crash the second half of their cycle, vitamin C is really helpful. So like citrus foods can be really great to help support healthy progesterone levels. So yeah, I definitely think there's something to eating certain foods depending on what phase of your cycle you're in.
Yeah. Which again, it just brings it back to know your body, know your cycle, know what it's needing, how to support it.
Yep.
All
absolutely.
comes back to. So for someone who is navigating betrayal and really feeling not just that emotional depletion, but the physical depletion, what are, say, just a few very simple, again, we don't want to overwhelm, we don't want to add things to the to-do list, but are really simple habits that they can do to help them to support the hormones and support their adrenals so that their body can start to move towards that balance in the face of all the trauma.
So for the folks that are coming in my office that are feeling this way, the very first thing we start with is eating 3 meals a day. Like if we're skipping meals like breakfast, or maybe we have a late breakfast and we skip lunch, our blood sugar is going to be wonky. It's really hard to get enough of the vitamins and minerals we need from just 2 meals a day. So we really work on like just eating 3 meals a day. Of course, I care about healthy foods, but if right now the most you can do is order pizza for dinner, but you're eating dinner, I'm okay with that. Once we're getting enough calories and nutrients in, then we can focus on optimizing.
I kind of say I love that, right? Like the compassion in that statement. I mean, I that really, I feel an emotional response to that because...
Well, then I'm going to have an emotional response because I'm a reciprocal person.
Well, because there are moments in my journey where it was so hard. Like I remember when my husband's full disclosures really came out, when he took things beyond where it had been before, that I couldn't eat. for a week.
Mhm.
I couldn't, my stomach, kind of like that sympathetic, everything just leaves my stomach, like all
Yep.
the energy just goes. I
Mhm.
couldn't eat anything. And if people were bringing me food, and I'm like, it hurts. It
Yeah.
hurts to eat something. That just starting with those basics, that compassion of like, you just got to get something.
Mhm.
It's so simple, but it's so important.
Yeah. Yeah. I also recommend for people to take a few minutes to sit in stillness every day,
Mm,
preferably in nature, but definitely like away from a screen. This can be meditation, reading, bird watching, stargazing, gardening, like whatever it is that brings you joy, peace, or creates that safety. Uh, we're just so used to the go, go, go. And that's telling our nervous system, like, we got to keep going. We can't slow down. Like, this is not safe. So when we have to create those moments. We can't find them. We have to create
yeah.
them. Um, it really helps to just slow the adrenals down, slow that cortisol down a little bit.
Yeah. I call those like the glimmers.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what are those things that just kind of give you a breath?
Mm-hmm.
Where your body can
Yep.
just kind of sink
You
and
can
melt a little
exhale.
bit?
Yeah.
Yeah, versus you're right, that go, go, go in
Mm-hmm.
survival, and so it's so often misunderstood that when we are in that dorsal, when there is, like, that complete overwhelm, there's so
Mm-hmm.
much stress there. But
Yeah.
people think, "Oh, there isn't any stress, you're just laying there." It's
Yeah.
like, "No, there's so much stress."
Yep. That
That's
your body is
why.
saying, "Nope, we're shutting it out right now. We need to
Yeah,
take a rest." Yep. So,
exactly.
the more we can create that rest in our life, the more resilience we're gonna be adding in.
Yeah.
And, we could also talk about things like reducing caffeine and added sugars, adding in herbal teas, but I think the conversation I have most with my clients is that recognizing that they are worth the effort. And the
Mm,
example I'll give is, they may say that like, oh, I really like these certain foods, veggies, beans, whatever, but my family doesn't. So I don't go through the effort of making it because it's just one more thing to have to do. But
yeah,
they're missing out on all of those nutrients and flavor profiles that they really enjoy. But they feel like they have to sacrifice it for the sake of one extra dish to wash kind of thing. So when
mhm,
we reframe it of like, yeah, but aren't you worth that extra dish? Like, aren't your taste buds and your health needs also important for that? And when I suggest that, some of them get a little bit of emotional because like they don't see it that way. And experiencing betrayal can already cause us to question our own worth and our value. So
100%.
things like, no, I'm gonna make the lentils or the black beans with my dinner because I want more fiber and I'm worth that. That's gonna help bring in that confidence, that security and safety as well.
Yes, that the affirmation of, like, the actionable affirmation of, "I matter.
Yes.
What I want
Mhm.
matters. My needs matter." And
Mhm.
100% in betrayal, all of that either goes out the window or is at least questioned.
Mhm.
And so being able to show up for yourself in those moments and say, "You know what? I matter enough
Yep.
to dirty the dish."
Yep. And recognizing that we can show up better when we show up for we can show up better for other people when we show up for ourselves. I
Yeah.
am a much better wife, mother, business owner, friend when I can take 45 minutes of my day to move my body in a way that makes it feel good because now I'm going to not have that anxious energy, right? Like I can
Yeah.
be calm and more present with the people that I'm with. And a lot of people feel like it is selfish or like they can't fit that time in. But by doing that, like now you can be more present, be more focused with those that you love, and you can pour into them better because you've poured into yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, and even it doesn't even have to be, like, the 45 minutes, right? It's taking that 5
A
minutes
10-minute
sometimes.
walk is better
Yeah,
than none.
exactly. It's like, just walk around the block. Like,
Yep.
I had a hysterectomy over the summer, and it was the slowly having to build up to movement again,
Mhm.
where it was, "Okay, I'm just gonna go around the blocks, around the little circle," and the first
Mhm.
time I went, it took me forever. I was so slow. And then a week later, I did it again, like,
Mhm.
trying to progressively get
Yeah.
faster, and it's like, "Okay, okay." But it's those incremental, titrated baby steps
Yes.
of,
And offering
what can you
yourself
do?
grace. Like,
Yes.
okay, maybe I can't walk around the block in 10 minutes, but I can do it in 30. And one day I will do it in less, and that's okay.
Yeah,
This is where I am
exactly.
right now.
Yeah, it's that meeting yourself where you're at with that
Mm-hmm.
compassion and patience that we don't like to give ourselves.
Yeah.
And just knowing this is what my body's needing right now. This is what it can do right now. I'm going to listen to that and I'm going to honor that
Yep.
ultimately.
Exactly.
Well, thank you so much, Devon, for being here. I've learned a lot, as I know that our listeners have too. So where can people reach you if they want to ask more questions or
Oh,
just
yeah.
learn from you more?
So I'm not creative, so my website is just devonragan.com. Devon, Devon, Ragan is Ragan.com. I'm on Facebook as Devon Ragan, licensed clinical nutritionist, and I'm on Instagram as devon.ragan nutritionist.
Awesome. And we'll put all of those in the show notes below so people can get to you, because I know you have so much more to offer them. Everyone be sure to follow her. She has great stuff. So I'll put all those below. And then until next time, take a deep breath, be gentle with yourself, and keep rising.